Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Mr. Denny Carter and Kyle Dvorchak to break down the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. That includes a little game on a little network you may have heard of called NBC and, of course, Peacock. That's Sunday. That's the Lions and the 49ers. We never thought the Lions would have Lions and Bucks. We never thought the Lions would have a walkover matchup for an NFC Championship game appearance. We'll see if Baker Mayfield has anything to say about that. There's also the fight in C.J. Stroud's standing in the Ravens' way of their second win of the playoff win of the Lamar Jackson era. The upstart Packers trying to upset the 49ers. There's another game. The Chiefs and Bills, the biggest game of the weekend. We'll talk about that one too. We'll talk about the coaching carousel first, though. We got Bill Belichick updates. We got Mike McCarthy non-updates and Cowboys beat reporters offering online therapy sessions to Cowboys fans. Seems like a really, really good sign.
Yeah.
We got Nick Sirianni twisting in the wind. You know what else we got? We got no riffing topics. I forgot about this before we started the show.
Well, we could just go right into the coaching stuff and riff on
not acceptable, in my opinion. You got to riff on something pointless, something aimless.
Something aimless.
Winter, am I right? Winter.
Oh,
yeah.
I almost got snow recently, and it was terrifying. So I hope you guys are enjoying yours.
Oh, wow. Kyle, he leaves the Midwest once and can't handle a little white stuff.
I'm done.
I do I do have to say this about the snow situation. We've had a lot of snow in Maryland, at least for Maryland standards. I know folks in Minnesota will say, what are you talking about?
Keep crying and coping about your 2 inches.
Right, and I will continue to keep crying and coping.
When I lived in Ohio, they did that too, to be clear. It would be like they would have to cancel school because you couldn't wait at the bus stop. You get frostbite, like it was -5 with horrific wind chills. And then the one teacher from Iowa, from Minnesota would come to school the next day and make fun of all of the kids.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we have here is there's this false memory. Okay, I'm 40. Okay, I went to school in the 90s, late 80s and in the 90s. And the false memory is this: we used to never have snow days. This is what.
Yeah.
Okay. That no matter what happened with the snow, it could have been 3 feet of snow, sideways hail, whatever, biblical storms. Not to get religious, but you went to school. You had to go, right? And now you get 4 flakes on the ground and they cancel the whole thing. No, that never happened. Here's the dynamic, and at least in Maryland, here's how it goes. They're real loose with calling snow days in December and January. Real loose.
Yeah.
You haven't had one. Let's give the kids a day, right? They do that, right? But it comes down to February and you've missed 7 or 8 days, then you get a 3-foot dump and they say, you're SOL, kids. You got to come to school.
And that's how the class of 93 lost 9 souls. They couldn't call an 8th snow day, so then everyone had to go to school.
But it is funny that a bunch of boomers and Gen Xers are like, we never got we got snow days, guys, folks. Everybody got snow days.
You know what's happening now? The private equity is just ruining the concept of a snow day. Now we have at-home learning days. We had one of those here this week where now they don't even give the kids the pleasure of a
because
snow
of
day.
Weather, though. They just said stay home and show up on Zoom. Oh man, that's a sad life to live.
It was more like they sent 3 assignments. One of them was literally my son cutting something out of a magazine. He's in preschool, all right. So he's not reading William Faulkner yet. Okay, he's cutting some stuff out of magazines, trying to learn how to use scissors. So it wasn't really the heaviest lifting, but I see in our future snow days being optimized and made efficient,
right,
where there's still work, and also the worst thing of all time.
Yeah, that's terrifying, man. The snow day was like a gift from God, like divine intervention to not have to go to school. And it's Christmas. You wake up and you don't know if you've gotten it or yet. You're watching the news ticker and when your county's abbreviation comes up through. To not have that joy in your life, that is a fundamental moment of my childhood.
The kids don't know. The kids today will never know what it was like to stay up in your room. Okay, I had a little TV that I got channel 4, 5, 7, and 9. That's it. Okay, and I barely got those. But I have it on channel 4 on NBC, of course, and I'd be watching the scroll at the bottom, and just say, Montgomery County, please, baby, one time. I'd be watching that closer.
No, your school is always the only one that's not canceled.
Yeah. And I'd be watching that closer than I watch my DFS lineups on Sunday. Come on, baby. I know I see Prince George's, I see Howard County, I see Loudoun County. Let's go. Come on, Montgomery. And then when it wouldn't show up, it'd be devastating.
It was the most devastating thing. I was like, I don't know what they do to these roads in Warren County. They're always canceled first. St. Charles County, and nothing ever happens here. Nothing ever happens on this football show that involves football. We got to move on.
There you go.
Football. That includes the coaching carousel where Bill Belichick seems like the favorite to get the Atlanta Falcons job. There, like every team is like interviewing like 19 candidates this year for some reason. This has become some weird coaching flex. I think the Falcons have interviewed like 13 or 14 people. But Bill Belichick is on to a second interview this weekend. Lots of foreshadowing that he is the heavy favorite there. CBS's Josina Anderson has tweeted as much. She hasn't said like he's getting the job or whatever, but very heavily foreshadowing that he will get the job. And just first off, I'm encountering a lot of this weird stuff online where everyone is like, they don't want Belichick. And, like some of the coaches that get recycled around this league, like you might want to recycle Bill Belichick, my opinion. And maybe it was just Mac Jones, and the year he got fired, he still had like the 8th or 9th best defense by DVOA and like the 2nd or 3rd by more conventional metrics. Might want to give Bill Belichick a second chance. Do you guys agree? Would Bill Belichick go a long way towards curing what's ailing the Falcons and instantly winning the extremely soft NFC South?
I think it's tough because who is Bill Belichick going to bring in to call plays on the offensive side of the ball?
Nick Sirianni.
Nick
Sirianni, maybe Mike McCarthy. Well, once the Cowboys change their mind and fire Mike McCarthy. No, sorry. I've interrupted your actual good point.
But who is it's Josh McDaniels sounds like an obvious name. So, it's not going to be Matt Patricia again, one would assume. Josh McDaniels sounds like a rather obvious name to bring in since as far as I know, he's still out of a job right now. Does that work for this team? It literally didn't work for the past 2 teams we've seen with McDaniels.
And it highlights Bill failed the biggest test of his post-Brady years wasn't the Patricia Judge year. Like that was like the year Bill finally had to touch the stove and get humbled. Like he made like the most hubristic hire imaginable when he had Patricia and Judge coordinate the offense. Like the big test was like, all right, how did he admit that mistake and move on from it? He needed to go outside his coaching tree, something he's almost never done. Last year was the year for Bill to go outside his coaching tree and kind of refresh his staff, refresh his approach. And he did not do it. He hired Bill O'Brien. The offense was almost as bad, worse actually than it was under Matt Patricia. And that is, Kyle, the big question about Belichick moving forward, because the defense is going to be elite. We just know that. He could be 89 and still coaching an elite defense. But what the heck is he going to do? Especially on a team that doesn't have a quarterback. That is the biggest question about Bill Belichick 2.0 is will he actually go outside his coaching tree? And he probably will not, Denny.
Right. I mean, the nightmare scenario, which I think is in play, is, Josh McDaniels comes along with the Belichick package, and with him comes Devontae Parker, comes Ezekiel Elliott, comes a bunch of.
And they've already got Jonnu Smith there.
Comes a few Raiders for this.
Yeah, you're going to establish the Patriot
Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is going to get cut, and he's a perfect he'll know the system we're bringing in. He can translate.
They're giving Mac Hollins a 3-year deal after Mac Hollins. I know he's on the Falcons this year, but after he played for the Raiders 2 years ago, they're going to give Mac Hollins a 3-year deal. Sorry.
Perfect.
Everywhere the Patriot way has been tried outside of New England has failed utterly. Okay. I think that'll be the case here as well. If they go to Atlanta. Now I know it's a soft division and everything, and they'll sneak by with 8 or 9 wins. But that why the Patriot way was just Tom Brady being great.
No, I don't. I actually do.
That's the only thing. That's the only factor in the whole thing. Tom Brady was great. That's it.
He made the Cleveland Browns relevant in the early 90s. We know that. He discovered a little coach by the name of Mr. Nicholas Saban. He went 11-5 with Matt Castle. He made the playoffs with Mac Jones. I do think it's transferable beyond Tom Brady, but is this this is where I always make this comparison between Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. Nick Saban, because of the nature of college football, is forced to adapt and evolve. He could not stay stagnant, otherwise he was just gone. Kind of the same thing has happened to Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He is not adapting and evolving at a fast enough rate, and he was outside the top 25 2 years ago. He was kind of back this year, but Nick, though, understood that in his game, you have to adapt and evolve. You don't have to do it as much in the NFL, but you do have to do it. The cycles don't turn over quite as quickly or as completely in the NFL, but Bill has just remained so stubborn, where I do think it's more the stubbornness and not that he wasn't ever great all along or whatever. I think understandably he believes after 2 decades of winning 12 games every year, he has a lot of faith in his system, but it turns out it's just a little too much faith. I think he could like make small tweaks and still be like one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the NFL. I'm also a massive Belichick apologist.
Yeah, I know you are, and I am a hater. So I don't know.
Been a hater.
Yeah. The truth is probably between our viewpoints.
It is definitely not just Brady. Brady wasn't even good like the first 6 years. Like, get out of here with that. Like, he was fine. He was like the.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure he like led the league in passing touchdowns in his 2nd and 4th and 5th year. But other than
no, he did not. He did not. I don't think he was ever on the league leaderboards really until like 2000, the year before Moss. He started to really get up on the league leaderboards.
His 2nd year as a starter, he led the NFL in passing touchdowns.
How many yards? How many yards? And the passing touchdowns too, was it like 31 or something? Like, get out of town.
You did catch me on a technicality. It was a low-scoring year for the league. 28 was enough to lead them.
Yeah, I mean, get out.
28.
Please. Like, it was a totally different game then. So,
Kyle, Kyle's right though. It entirely depends on who he brings in as an offensive coordinator, because I mean the Falcons have, like we've said a million times on the show, a ton of talent. They should be good on paper. They're real good. I'm just afraid that the Patriot way is going to be forced upon the Falcons, and that doesn't work.
I'll say that Tom Brady
candidate for them. I've got a decent candidate for them for OC. Rams passing game coordinator Zach Robinson has been spending his entire coaching career with the Rams, which like that has proven a generally successful strategy for hiring throughout the league for like 5 years now. He was he wasn't practice squad player. He was a summer player in his first year in the NFL, drafted by the Patriots in the 7th round, I believe. Any connection you can make to Bill Belichick, but still like have the bona fides of being a good coach, should be an in. Like, we've seen him, I don't want to say like nepotism, but he hires his guys. He hires guys he knows. He drafted this guy. They cut him before the start of the year, but he's gone on to immediately be a successful, not offensive coordinator, but pass game coordinator, a rising name in the league. Like, you don't have to step all the way out. Your tree is so deep. Belichick's obviously coached so long that he can reach just a little bit deeper than the surface level and find a guy like Zach Robinson. And maybe that's the strategy for them to have a successful offense.
And Kyle, we're totally in agreement on that. He just has to go outside his tree. He needs something to refresh this. I really think it could be like modest tweaks. And he's back. He's never going to be Brady Bill again. Not to get political. But he's going to still be Bill Belichick, and he just has to evolve and adapt ever. And by the way, on the Brady versus Belichick argument, Brady's first 6 years in the league never once threw 30 touchdowns and only got MVP votes twice. But he was very good, but he was not the Tom Brady that we came to remember as like the merciless death machine that you had no chance of beating.
Very good feels fair though. That feels fair. He definitely wasn't the Brady. Like, he wasn't the Brady I know. I really don't even hardly remember the earliest Brady years. The Brady most people think of is 2015, 16.
Earlier Brady was a plumber. I mean, Denny knows. Denny won't say it now because he's trying to win an argument. He was a plumber.
No, he was. He wasn't. Look, he wasn't in shape.
He was not in shape. That is true.
He wasn't, taking care of himself physically. I mean, he had a little pudge on his face and everything. I mean, he didn't look like an Italian supermodel. And once he got the Italian supermodel look, he took off.
It was over after that. Yeah, he wasn't on his 5 almonds a day diet yet.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. He still had 1 beer per year, and that messed him up.
Belichick has become the ultimate Rorschach.
Yeah.
Rorschach. How do you say it?
That's it.
You got it. I think the last one.
Become the test, though. We can see whatever we want to in 71-year-old Bill Belichick. You can't really see whatever you want to in Mike McCarthy. He's just not a good coach. I mean, he's like totally fine. Like, Mike McCarthy is every year. Mike McCarthy is the 16th best coach in the league.
Oh no,
he is. He's the 16th best coach in the league. Hold on. All right, you.
I thought long and hard about Jerry Jones issuing a statement longer than a novel on keeping Mike McCarthy, which is a great sign, by the way, when you have to explain it that much. But I think it's the right move because look,
because you're a Cowboys hater, so you think it's the right move.
No, I am an enjoyer of good offensive football, and hardly anyone was better offensively than the Cowboys this year. They wrecked the league. Let's just be honest about it. They were a machine, especially over the last 10 or 12 weeks of the season. It was a slow start. They started to ignore Tony Pollard, which is the right thing, and they took off, right? And I think you try that again. You just do that again and see if it works.
I just feel like 12 wins 3 years in a row. The baseline's already so high. It's clearly a project that needs like a finishing touch. Because they're so close. And I think it's been established. I think you can say after 3 years and one playoff victory, which was against like the remains of the Tom Brady Bucks, you can say Mike McCarthy's not the finishing touch.
I mean, they're tight, Pat. It's just a 1 game thing, you know. It's so volatile, but they're so tight. Dak Prescott's so tight, so nervous, right? Mike McCarthy's nervous. They were playing against. Well, I'll talk about this later. Against a footloose and fancy free. The Zoomers are saying this Packers team, okay, and the Packers said we don't care. We weren't even supposed to be here, okay. They were as loose as can be, playing a team that is tighter than tight. But just desperately trying to recapture some glory from 30 years ago. They haven't been good at 30 years, and they couldn't, and they gotta solve that issue. Forget about the
Mike McCarthy's not solving that. Mike McCarthy, you seen this guy? You want to talk about tight?
I mean, some therapy or medication, just something. I mean, they gotta get this figured out.
They do got. Mike McCarthy is not the answer.
I feel like somehow you spun 12 wins in 3 years in a row as a knock against Mike McCarthy, which I think
is. No, this roster was elite before he got there. He's not a bad coach. Like that narrative is overplayed. Like when you get in the rarefied air at the top of the league, the margins are where it's won. Like who anyone think Mike McCarthy is going to outcoach Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay? In a big playoff
he's a very
game?
Good coach.
Like absolutely not. He's a good coach, but like he was a good coach, especially like 15 years ago when he was kind of on the forefront of the passing explosion. He's not going to outcoach Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay.
Wait. If I got to make okay, look. We were all skeptical, probably maybe me most of all, when McCarthy booted Kellen Moore and said, "I'm the captain now."
Kellen Moore's a plumber. We said,
"Oh, this is bad," and it turns out that was completely wrong. Mike McCarthy took this offense to the next level, not Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore almost intentionally held them back. Okay, Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore this past year was catastrophic for Kellen Moore. Forget about what happened with him. The fact that McCarthy took this offense to the next level means Kellen Moore should probably never be a head coach.
And his brother's doing a really good job at Mizzou, by the way. Really don't want him to get hired away. Kirby, we love Kirby Moore. But Mike McCarthy, he should just be an offensive coordinator then, man. Because, like, how many times did he – the final 5 years in Green Bay, it was the classic. Every loss was like a one-possession playoff game loss. And he's not putting your team over the top. He can be part of a really high baseline, but in the rarefied air of, like, the elite top 5 to 6 teams in the NFL, he's not going to put them over the top. I think that's just like abundantly clear at this point. Like, and he had to match with Pete Carroll, who's not exactly known as like the end game maestro. He choked away a Super Bowl appearance. Like, I just feel like it's been abundantly proven that against like the elite minds of the league, he's not going to be the difference in like a close big game.
I mean, like, who is his replacement though? That like. If Shanahan's were growing on trees, I'd say sure, absolutely. Fire most head coaches. But like
his replacement in Green Bay was immediately better and remains immediately better and just beat him in the playoffs. Like they're out there, folks. They're out there.
Who do you think would be a good replacement?
I mean, Bill Belichick, they'd be winning the next.
Oh my God, Belichick ruins this team instantly.
No,
he would run 30 times a game.
Bill Belichick? Yeah, how many history-making seasons? Who was the coach when Tom Brady made history? Like
he ruins this team. He brings in like Leonard Fournette and gives Fournette 40 touches a game.
You're aware of the most legendary offensive season in NFL history? The 2007 Patriots happened under Bill Belichick, right? Like they scored over 500 points like 5 times with Bill. But he would not ruin this team. He's been unwatchable the past few years with Mac Jones, but he would not be ruining this. They seriously scored 500 points, I think, like 5 different times. Like
I know. I was around. I didn't like it.
He wouldn't be ruining the Cowboys. I don't know if it's a very pointless argument since they are not hiring Bill Belichick.
and they're not only are they not firing their coach, they wouldn't have hired that guy anyways.
Yeah, we were going to talk about Dan Quinn. We have time. We have to move on to the divisional round. The divisional round, of course, kicks off with the AFC's top-seeded Ravens getting nearly 10 points at home against the upstart Houston Texans. Denny Carter, The Ravens are still searching for that elusive second playoff victory of the Lamar Jackson era. They've come close so many times. But you think their 2023 offensive approach has them on the right track to a victory, that they are doing the right thing? At least the process is good on offense, the Ravens, according to you.
Yeah, the process is great. I wrote about it. You can find that on the site, about how the Ravens have finally, I think, gotten out from under the shadow of Lamar's magical 2019 season. That season, the Ravens easily led the league in EPA per play and offensive success rate. And they did it all with a very old school run first, massively run heavy, especially in early downs offense. And I think that, they've been kind of doomed to try to repeat that formula over and over and over again since then. And the league has figured it out. I mean, that's what I argue in my piece. And Todd Monken has come in and said, okay, all right, we're done. We're done with 2019 is 5 years ago. Okay, we're on to modern day football. We're going to pass the ball heavily on early downs. That's what they've done. They drop back on early downs a lot. You can check out the numbers in the piece, but top 6 in early down pass rate. If they continue that, I think the Ravens are well positioned to win this game easily and to go on and be prohibitive Super Bowl favorites. Now, if they turtle and if they say it's cold outside and we gotta establish it in the playoffs, and you win in the playoffs by running the ball and tackling well, then they're gonna lose. Yeah, and I just hope that they don't do that.
I love that you threw in tackling, because your point is absolutely true, but it's just like the one-time tackling well is not a good thing. It's like you do not want to be emphasizing tackling heading into division round matchup. that you're already coaching not.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap them up this week.
Please.
Singletary. The players who cares? Damian Pierce.
Also,
sorry.
Also, according to Aaron Schatz at FTN Fantasy, John Harbaugh is now among the 3 most conservative decision makers on offense because the analytics did not work once for him. So
no, they did not.
We're scared. I'm scared for the Ravens. I hope that they keep it up.
He had a few too many end of game 2-point conversion decisions go horribly awry.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what happens if they do lose this game? I mean, the narratives are going to be just draped over John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. It's going to be so bad if they lose this game. And I mean, Kyle, is there any way the Ravens can lose this game? What would the path to victory for the Texans be beyond CJ Stroud just going God mode, which he, of course, did against the Cleveland Browns' supposedly elite defense? The Ravens, another team on paper, have an elite defense, and one that held up better down the stretch than Cleveland.
Yeah, as you pointed out, Cleveland was still a fine defense down the stretch, but they weren't quite at that weeks 1 through, let's call it 10 or so height. And man, they just frankly did not play a good game against the Texans. The Texans played a solid game of football, but it was a lot of taking the open threes and easy layups that just a completely uncoordinated, out of nowhere Cleveland defense gave them. There was a really fun and interesting debate about PFF grades on Twitter, because CJ Stroud and Jordan Love had similar stats. CJ Stroud had a far lower PFF grade, but it checks the eye test. I saw Jordan Love make some insane throws, and Stroud hit the open threes, and even had one should-be interception that wasn't intercepted, I believe. So they sort of got away with it a little bit last week. The pass protection also wasn't great. He had a pressure rate slightly higher than his season-long average. He did handle the pressure well. That's not something he's done a great job of, dating back to his time at Ohio State. I do think they need to do a better job keeping him clean, because I don't want to put everything on him getting there under pressure when that's not something he's generally done. So I expect to see, like we did last week and like we've seen the past 3 or 4 weeks, a lot of 12, and I think Andrew Beck's banged up, but maybe if he's healthy, some 21 personnel to try and avoid a really strong Ravens pass rush, keeping him clean and not forcing him to be a hero, essentially forcing him or allowing him sit in the pocket and rip some nasty throws. That's what they need to do. Sort of got away with not having to do as much of that against the Browns, especially when your defense puts 14 points on the board. Your offense isn't asked to do a ton.
Joe Flacco lived his life like a candle in the wind. As Denny and Kyle told us he would. You were both not drinking the Flacco Kool-Aid. I wanted to, but I knew that.
Of course, everyone wanted to, man. It was fun.
At the party, I was like, I'll drink it after you guys. See them all keeling over. Good thing I didn't do that. Because, I didn't want to be the Joe Flacco hater. But it seemed like you guys were onto something. Kyle, real quick, you mentioned You mentioned something about Andrew Beck, the Texans fullback, being injured. Noah Brown placed on injured reserve. They are kind of banged up. They're not like ruinously banged up. Of course, Tank Dell on injured reserve, but the Texans are not playing with like a full deck on offense right now. So it's going to be very hard for them to spring yet another upset, I feel like.
I think, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think John Mechie is interesting with Noah Brown out. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that was the next thing I had when Pat asked me about the interesting DFS plays. So good. No, I'm just kidding. I don't
Get into it. What are the interesting Texans DFS plays? Because in theory, the 4-team slate, the team we're not going to be onslaughting against this Ravens defense, are we, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. But like I said, I think CJ Stroud with a clean pocket is like a top 5 quarterback. And frankly, like even if you just take the average of the times he doesn't have a clean pocket and times he does, he's probably still close to, if not just straight up a top 5 quarterback. He's closer to pushing to that top 3-4 status among like the basically the tier after Allen Mahomes from a clean pocket. He's just been that good when given time to throw. So if they accomplish that, like if you in your mind, you're constructing a lineup in which that happens, at that point, you probably can play a pretty solid chunk of Texans in your lineup. Nico Collins absolutely dominating the targets. He's the one who, no surprise, does not leave the field no matter if they're playing 12, 21, or anything else. Beyond that, it's a bit more of a mixed bag. Maybe we see more Robert Woods this week. Hasn't been seemingly fully healthy in a while. He didn't run a ton of routes last week, as Denny pointed out. That guy was actually John Mechie with 68% of the routes. Pretty solid 20% target per route run. It just depends on how you want to go with that. To me, I'd maybe want to bet on Mechie more because at this point, I just don't know what Robert Woods physically has left to give this season. So I do think Mechie's like an interesting dart throw. Still not quite a full-time player, but last week at least, he was the closest thing they had to a wide receiver too.
Is it Schultz season at all? Is he still playing? Is he on reserve or something?
He's not getting a ton of routes like he was early in the season. Brevin Jordan kind of split that with him.
Brevin Jordan scoring a quote giga ultra touchdown against the
Brevin Jordan looking like, I don't know, the fastest tight end in the history of the league.
Yeah, that was insane. That was totally insane.
I actually was like dumbfounded. Like I was like,
too.
That can't be Brevin Jordan.
He entered the game. I think this is his third season. He entered the game with a career-long reception of 27 yards.
Yeah, right. And
if I remember correctly, Brevin Jordan was like a yak monster fiend at Miami. Like he was like super athletic, playing like just the like prototypical, this guy is a tight end, but just makes plays like a wide receiver at Miami. But like obviously it never materialized until when I don't want to say they needed him most because they beat the brakes off the Browns, but when they showed up in the playoffs, all of a sudden this dude was a unit.
So is it Brevin Jordan season in DFS for either one of you guys?
No, he didn't run a ton of routes. He's cool. He's fun, but he's not like the most fantasy relevant play. He's showdown. If this game has, all the games have showdown or FanDuel's like single game format. Yeah, sure. Dabble in your Brevins there.
Denny, what's the Ravens DFS outlook? Again, not a great Texans defense. Not a bad Texans defense, but it is no one's idea of a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can maybe get weird with the Ravens running backs, assuming positive game script. And the Ravens tend to lean toward the run with positive game script, like most teams. So that could put into play, like, if you're playing showdowns, like you could play both Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, maybe, and Lamar. With no pass catchers, that sort of thing. I mean, when these teams played in week 1, you had Zay Flowers with a 38% target per route run rate, which is really strong. Led the team easily with 10 targets. So obviously he's interesting. He'll be highly rostered. I think Isaiah Likely will be highly rostered because the Texans have been crushed by tight ends in the middle of the field, and Likely profiles as that guy. Now, I guess Mark Andrews. That
is the thing. Yeah, Kyle. Mark Andrews is practicing in full as of Wednesday. I don't know what the Thursday update is yet. It seems like he's going to play. If you practice in full at any point during the week before a playoff game, you're almost certainly going to play.
So I guess, I wouldn't expect him to come in and run 100% of the routes or anything. But, we have an update. Andrews playing against Texans is, quote, still up in the air. So we don't know.
All right. We'll see. All right. Seems kind of weird.
I mean, like you said, Pat, he practiced in full. Team called him day-to-day. I believe it was the offensive coordinator called him day-to-day on, it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. Like day-to-day, like you said, day-to-day players typically, like players called day-to-day, typically play. Players who get in a full practice, as long as they don't regress at any point in the week, typically play, especially when it's the playoffs. I think I'm betting on him playing, despite the fact that, like, Initially, season-ending injury. Shortly after that, the reports were like, maybe a deep playoff run, a Super Bowl appearance, maybe. I think I made the joke that they list him as questionable for the Super Bowl, and then they don't play him or whatever.
You did, yeah.
And everything has just gotten better every step of the way. And his sort of practice regimen, not knowing the final practice of the week, kind of reminds me of Sam Laporta's last week, where entering the week, you think there's just no way this guy is going to play too soon coming off the injury. It's a very different injury, but too soon. And then by the end of the week, gets in a full practice, and you're like, if we hadn't had the reports right after the game for Mark Andrews, that was a long time ago, you would say, oh, full practice, I guess he's going to go. I kind of think we're heading that way this week. We're like, I guess he's going to go. And interestingly, Sam Laporta played all the snaps last week. Wasn't targeted a ton, but did get in the end zone. I don't know if Mark Andrews plays all of the snaps, but as we speculate with Laporta, and in some sense turned out to be true, a lot of high leverage opportunities for him probably. Like they get in the red zone, I'd be shocked if Mark Andrews isn't out there. Like 3rd and 7, like manageable 3rd down that's not obviously like 3rd and 21 draw play. That's very possibly a first read Mark Andrews target. Maybe he's not out there blocking as much. He's never blocked the most in his career, but I could see him playing a lot of the passing plays.
Yeah, almost no way he's not snap counted. I don't think it's going to be like Sam Laporta because Isaiah Likely's been playing so well. But the risk would be for Likely that Andrews is getting the highest leverage snaps. Yes, Denny Carter.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Here's a quote from Andrews from just a few minutes ago. If I feel like I'm close but not there, I'll let these guys go and hopefully get there by next weekend. That sounds to me like a guy who's not planning on playing.
The low dog
does sound. Yeah.
Well, say Kyle, the joke I was thinking is hopefully this doesn't mean this is the Ravens Super Bowl. You said he'd be questioned for the Super Bowl, and the Ravens are so tilted that they're worried the divisional round is their Super Bowl. I digress. We digress. The Green Bay Packers are fresh off demolishing the Cowboys at what is known as Jerry World, but are still nearly 10-point underdogs in Santa Clara, California against the 49ers, Kyle. The Pack were a wild card joy. The 49ers, though, are a divisional round colossus. Is it safe to say the Packers formula here is the exact same as it was in Dallas, which is every team's playoff formula? Pray you get an early lead and then pray for Brock Purdy meltdown mode, question mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of, like, we talked about this on the show, the recap show, I think, Sunday night or whatever. Like, there's only so much you can, like, you're always trying to get an early lead because you're always trying to score points. And to the Packers' credit, they're not playing conservative. They are trying to score points. I do think, hopefully, last week taught them a bit of a lesson in which we saw Sean Clifford come in, and then they immediately brought in Jordan Love again because the Cowboys were starting to score. Do not take your foot off the gas. I get that the 49ers aren't necessarily a comeback-oriented team in the way that you could make that argument for the Chiefs. I mean, Chiefs literally 15 seconds is too much, like iconic for them. I don't think the 49ers are quite that team, but with how explosive they are and how many playmakers they have, I think it's generally fair to say they can score points in droves, even if they're from behind. So I'd say, like, get up early, but then continue to get up as much as you can. One, like, stylistic note I think will change from last week to this week is the Cowboys were not terrible, but were generally bad against 2 tight end sets all year. They weren't terrible at it, but they were much worse against that than the 49ers are. The 49ers are really good against 12 personnel. So I do think we'll probably see them move back into 11 more so, which was interesting last week. Jaden Reed didn't play a ton. I think he was 3rd on the team in routes, kind of split a little bit with both Christian Watson and then the tight ends that they mixed around. This probably gives him a better shot to what it turns out to be, literally get on the scoreboard. They didn't need him to. It's not his fault that he didn't get on the scoreboard, but I think he zeroed. I think he had a perfect zero-catch game.
He did. The snowflake heard around the world on DK, summer calling.
Yeah. So I think he'll probably be running more routes this week as we see a bit scaled back version of how much 21 they run or 12 they run.
That's it. As we said, every team wants to get the early lead. But the Packers, though, understood. The Packers did what I feel like every road dog needs to do against like an elite offense. You need to take the ball and you need to try to score and immediately change the psychology of the game, especially against a team like the Cowboys, are under so much immense pressure, as Denny pointed out. Like, man, we haven't had the ball yet. We're already down 7-0. But you need to get the ball. You need to score against the 49ers. Then you need to hope the scripted opening series fails. And then immediately the doubts begin to creep in for the 49ers. That's the Packers' only path to victory. You heard it here first. There's literally no way they can win unless they do.
By the way, how different is this Packers team compared to the latter-day Aaron Rodgers Packers, where even when they were winning, they were absolutely miserable.
I know. And the vibes were so bad.
And this team is fun. They're having a good time. Okay. Jordan Love, like I said, is loose as a goose, some would say. And his goose-like play has really, I think makes them scary. I would be frightened if I were the Niners. You have a team with nothing to lose, and you have everything to lose.
Yeah, you got just an offense really cooking with gas, like an opportunistic defense. Not a good defense though by the Packers by any stretch. But yeah, they are the quintessential team with nothing to lose, and fresh off dropping 48 on a good defense on the road. So we talk about the Packers. Denny, what is the state of the 49ers offense entering the playoffs? Christian McCaffrey, of course, injured his calf late in the year, but pretty healthy. They were explosive all year. They scored 1 million points all year. Yeah. State of San Francisco heading into the divisional round.
Well, it's good, I would say.
That's good.
Yeah, that's all I got. No, it's they're going to go run heavy here because I mentioned the funnel defense report, which is on the site now, that the Packers are the most extreme run funnel defense in the NFL and have been for some time. That didn't really matter against the Cowboys because of game script. I guess barring crazy game script, I think that they are just going to run the ball relentlessly against the Packers. That's not to say that like Brock Purdy and the pass catchers are in a bad spot. The Packers, by every measure, are very exploitable secondary as well. I know that it was a lot of garbage time, but Dak ended up carving up that Green Bay defense, which again gets back to what you're saying, Pat and Kyle, that if the Packers get up in this game, they have to continue to score, like continue to be aggressive to try to put points on the board. There is no lead that is safe with this Niners offense against this Packers defense. But I do think we'll see a run heavy script here. The Niners were 3% under their expected dropback rate on the season. They were sort of pass heavy to end the season. But I think this revolves around CMC, obviously, and maybe Deebo Samuel as a secondary rushing option.
When you were talking, I began to see the contours of what a Packers victory would look like. Or, like you said, it makes a ton of sense for the Niners to go run heavy. But then we hear, like, with the 11:47 mark of the second quarter, they go down to Fox's Aaron Andrews on the sideline. Like Kevin and Greg, they've been managing Christian McCaffrey's reps. He's still dealing with that calf injury. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, my God, it's happening. It's happening again. And the Packers are going to get away with it again. Brock Purdy's going to throw 3 picks again. They're taking him out on every second down.
Yeah.
Well, it's
right. He has a heavy wrap around the calf now.
Elijah Mitchell also in the blue tent. And
he hasn't even been in the game.
No. He injured in pregame warmups too soon. Yeah. Question mark. So you sound a little more nervous about the 49ers than the Ravens when you two were talking.
I'm nervous for the Niners. The Packers to me are just a scary little team that could.
I feel like their defense is just too bad.
Jordan Love is playing. Jordan Love is prime Aaron Rodgers right now.
I feel like this game is the ultimate. We will know after the first 2 drives who are winning, because the Packers, it's not an option not to score on their opening drive. And if Shandy comes out with one of his classic scripted opening series touchdowns, like it's just going to be a long day for Green Bay.
I don't know, man.
I think we'll know if the Packers are losing within the first 2 drives, because I think even if the 49ers go down early, like Denny said, they're so explosive, they can come back. But if the 49ers go up early, man, that is a tough road to hoe when you are facing down an incredible running attack, but also a team that could still, if they choose to pass, light you up.
So, Kyle, what are the Packers' DFS priorities then? They're not going to win this game on the back of the run game. Aaron Jones could be a DFS priority, but who are you jamming into all your lineups this weekend? We know you have 7,000 lineups, Kyle.
So I think if you're doing projections at this point, you probably have to pencil in Romeo Doubs for the highest, at least, route rate. He's a player who does not come off the field for this team. Then when they move out of 11 personnel, we saw this like earlier in the year as well. Jaden Reed, he's primarily a slot receiver. If they do move out of 11 personnel, he does come off. Like I said, I think they do that less this week, but you wouldn't blame them for sticking in at least some 12 personnel. They have 2 very strong rookie tight ends. I think Dontavion Wicks will, maybe last week, strong performance will boost his ownership, but people are scared of playing him over Jaden Reed when Jaden Reed was so good throughout his rookie year. Wicks was really good as well, like nearly paralleling Reed and a bunch of the efficiency metrics. And they use him more on the outside. So we're not as concerned that he comes off the field as much. Last week, he was second on the team in routes.
Yeah, again, they are calling it the DK snowflake emoji heard around the world.
Yeah, the one that cost me everything.
It did. It cost me everything. You used to have a beautiful family.
I used to have a backyard. Now it's gone.
Then you used to have golf clubs.
Yeah, those are gone.
No, they're all gone. The first thing the bank examiner took was the golf clubs.
You're right.
I've been eyeing up this Titleist for a long time, Mr. Carter. You're crying in the corner.
My Titleist.
Denny's pleading, my wedding ring, please. It's worth more money. Take the wedding ring.
Like, I didn't know the bank examiner could come and just start taking your possessions. But that's how it works.
And they're making me re-grip the clubs before they buy it.
Wow, that's really harsh. Denny, what are the 49ers DFS priorities? It sounds like you got to pony up for Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, it really look. If you are brave enough to make, so if it's 4-game slate, if you're brave enough to fade McCaffrey, your lineup is going to be wildly different just off the bat. Okay, because that frees up so much cap space for other positions, obviously. And I'm guessing, I don't know, Kyle, what do you think? 65-70% rostership for CMC?
I was going to say 70%.
Really?
Plus.
What's he over? He's over 9,000. I doubt it'll be that high.
But it's like an automatic, because the terror of not having CMC on a CMC blow up day is all too real. It's soul shattering. Okay, that sort of fear. And so people are rightly going to flock to him. I do think you could get kind of weird and do like Purdy, Kittle. Kittle is in a great spot here because the tight ends have just wrecked the Packers, especially over the past like 4 or 5 weeks. We saw Jake Ferguson go for 9 catches, 3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns, each one of them more meaningful than the last.
But so it could be one of those Kittle blow up games. So you could do like Purdy, Kittle, Debo, not CMC, and get weird. I feel like
now you're talking. That's what I'm going to do. I wish I might write that down when you start talking for the next game.
Also, I mentioned this in the Funnel Defense Report, folks. Look, I know that the Niners are getting defensive end Eric Armstead back this week, most likely. Okay, he's practicing. So that does change the calculus. But the numbers and the data say that the Niners' rush defense is not really that good. Okay, I know they are a massive pass funnel, but teams are not. So I think the teams are not passing a lot versus San Francisco because they're afraid to run it. I think they're doing it because Brock Purdy and the offense is a machine that never stops scoring points. So it forces the other team just throw. That's the reason, right? And so I do feel like Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon's questionable, I know, but I do feel like Aaron Jones is not in the worst spot right here.
That actually does make a lot of sense. And he just had a great game in Dallas and was finally healthy to end the season. I had a bunch of great games to end the season. We're going to end our Packers 49ers talk and be right back after this. The Lions are looking to continue their storybook season, and they can advance to the NFC Championship game with a win over Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Coverage of the Divisional Round showdown in Detroit begins at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Sunday on NBC and Peacock. And don't forget, find all your favorite NBC sports shows and Amazon Music. Just head to Amazon.com/NBC Sports. Yeah, guys, if it feels like the Lions are getting a divisional round free space in the Bucs, or it does feel like that, but the 6.5 point spread is actually the second smallest of the second playoff weekend, Denny. The Bucs are pretty impressive in their wild card beatdown of the Eagles. Yeah. But is it safe to say the Lions are prohibitive favorites despite only being the third biggest favorite of the weekend?
Yes. I would be stunned, honestly, if the Lions lost this game. I mean, being at home means a lot to any team. I think especially a team like the Lions, who have played really well at home this year. Over the second half of the season, they have some pretty wild home away splits. So, they get the Bucs in Detroit. I do like their chances. I think that this means probably a really run heavy approach. I could see David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs seeing a lot of touches here, both in the run game and then the dump off pass game. The Bucs have been vulnerable against running backs in the pass game. So I could see this game, this offensive game plan for the Lions revolving around the running backs.
I was just not agreeing with everything you said. I don't have a follow-up point. Are we done with talking about this game then? I think
no, I don't think so.
To be honest, I was already daydreaming about Chiefs Bills.
I think this game could be fun for DFS because Lions are massive pass funnel and Baker can bake here and throw.
Baker can bake. I'm a little surprised that the total's under 50. It is only 48.5.
I like the over.
I understand what you're saying with the game environment and like the Lions' offensive strengths about going run heavy, but the Bucs have been a team that you want to pass on still more than run on. Not that they're like an elite run defense.
Yeah.
But it does seem like they could still go nuts through the air.
So and I mentioned this in the funnel defense report, that has shifted a bit, right? So like 6-8 weeks ago, we were like, hey, everybody's throwing against the Bucs. That has, kind of cooled off for one reason or another. I will say that the Lions were 12% over their expected dropback rate against the Bucs when these teams played in week 6. So that would suggest that what I said is completely wrong. I do think that this is just an entirely different team. It's just a different defense. Teams are attacking it in different ways.
We also almost got a Goffening against the Rams. He had
I know
that shot put fumble attempt.
Yeah. Okay. So the book is out on Jared Goff. You pressure him and nothing can work.
No.
So just do that.
Just do that and easily win the game and advance to play the San Francisco 49ers. Denny laid out what you might want to do on defense against the Lions. Kyle, what is the Bucs' likely offensive approach in this game? What's going to be like a jet engine type stadium in Detroit? It's been a really, really raucous environment up there.
Before we get to that, was that shot put fumble attempt recovered by, I think, Brock Wright? Because I remember
maybe it went out of bounds. I can't remember what happened.
I remember thinking, what are the implications of this DFS wise? Are we losing yards on this? Because that could be very punishing.
You're sick.
Just exactly. After thinking that, I was like, my brain is so warped. I can't keep doing this. Moving on to the Bucs offense. I think we see another relatively pass-heavy approach from this team. They're right around league average in pass rate over expected on the year, but they face a defense that teams have unanimously agreed in the Lions defense that you just keep throwing against them. They're a bottom 10 team in EPA allowed per pass attempt or per drop back rather, and they face a top 5 pass rate over expected. So I think there are some DFS implications I'll get into for that. But overall, the broad strategy, as most teams have come to the consensus on, is you just throw against the Lions. And especially for a team that probably wants to run the ball, if you can get an early lead, we talked about this with a few other spots, I do think they're less equipped. They're not a bad passing attack by any means, but it'll at least bring them out of their play calling comfort zone.
Speaking of that, the Baker Mayfield looked a lot healthy. It looked like the Regeneron or whatever had taken hold in the wild card round. For week 18, Denny pointed out the sideline reporters were saying like Baker Mayfield was like gasping for air.
Right. He's not breathing. Yeah.
So he was the Bucs coach was having to remind Baker to breathe.
They put him in the iron lung briefly, but then they're like, all right, get back out there. Why do you think the blue tent is so big? It's to fit the whole iron lung.
Yes, I'm kind of surprised they won that game.
Why were we so hesitant to go with the Bucs last week? Like there was just no chance that Tampa was going to lose that game.
It's just left over. They made the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles, and then they were 10-1. We just didn't have a long enough time for our brains to make the adjustment that they're not good.
The Bucs like did some like really embarrassing things for the Eagles. When Baker throws just a jump ball in the end zone, and he knows like the Eagles don't have that dog. Like the Eagles are not even going to try to defend this ball. And Godwin comes down with it. It was a effort. Godwin down there somewhere. Yeah. I think he literally said that. I think
he did. He actually did. After the play, he ran up and said Godwin down there somewhere.
That's really embarrassing. That's for the Eagles. Truly embarrassing that a quarterback was like, I don't care where this ball goes. The Eagles are not getting it.
Yeah, producer Adam points out we made the mistake of thinking the Eagles actually liked playing.
I think you clean swept last week if you went with like vibes-based approach.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the only one is you could call vibes either way for like Dolphins because Chiefs vibes are also kind of terrible this year. But like other than that, vibes-based approach 100% was on Packers, 100% was on Bucs, and was like on favorites from there on out. So
it was pretty much on the Chiefs too. Everyone was talking about like
probably.
The Dolphins have never experienced weather like this, and then they immediately looked like they had never experienced it.
Yeah.
And it was pretty bad. And the Eagles, too, just had one final Eagles thought that is eluding me. But yeah, they were so bad that I absolutely love when my team is so bad that the best player, our future Hall of Famer, immediately just retires after the game.
A legend of the
franchise on the field
is standing, and nothing against Jason Kelce, but is standing on the sideline weeping. Openly weeping.
And it was like clear. It was like the only time I think I've ever seen it was like clear on TV that he was retiring. Like, oh, this guy's retiring right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was
we had that moment with Antonio Brown, but it was very different. I'll be honest.
True. Jason Kelce has, of course, walked it back, claiming he has not made up his decision yet.
Well, yeah, okay.
And they were so bad that he was just very visibly retiring on the field. It's like, wow, yeah, I expected a little more. Shoot, it feels like we're done talking about this game, but anything on the DFS situation? Kyle and the Bucs. What are the Bucs DFS priorities? We kind of already laid it out, but who are you jamming in every lineup?
Yeah, the lines have gotten rocked by slot receivers this year, and you typically expect that to be like a mix of Godwin and whoever their third receiver has been. That's been a mix of players as well. But I will note, Mike Evans playing way more out of the slot over the past 5 weeks than he has at any point this season. All 4 of his games over a 35% slot rate have come in their past 5 games. They're moving around, trying to get him the ball in different ways. He's still not a primary slot receiver by any means, but the fact that he's being used in a more versatile fashion and that is moving him into the slot against a team that really has defended the slot poorly. I think the second or third most fantasy points to slot receivers given up. I think it's probably a really good spot for Mike Evans after, I think, a very quiet last week.
Denny, on the Lions front, it sounds like you have Jahmyr Gibbs in every lineup.
Oh, man.
What are the DFS priorities?
Yeah, so I guess if you want to just like pour everything into running back, you go with CMC and Gibbs. But I mean, Gibbs is going to be way less rostered. I think his ceiling, I mean, I know ceiling is in the eye of the beholder, but I do think that his ceiling would be comparable to CMC if he really gets a full workload. I mean, a foolish workload against what has become a beatable Tampa front seven.
Didn't hear one of you say, quote, JMO. JMO in the lineup.
Does he play?
Yeah, he's playing, right?
I don't know.
He's running routes, but I believe Josh Reynolds saw way more targets than him.
Oh my gosh. Week, so. Kyle, I thought I was onto something with Josh Reynolds last week.
He got targeted.
Revenge game.
He didn't score anything, but
it was purely vibes. I was just like, I'm going with my vibes guy, Josh Reynolds, and he was so hot in the first half. I was like, oh, what's happening?
DFS is warping everybody's brains.
I know.
Must move on to the final game of the weekend. Last but far from least is the Bills and Chiefs' latest grudge match. This time in Buffalo after years of Bills postseason road trips to Arrowhead Stadium. Kyle, much has been made of the fact that this is Patrick Mahomes' first foray outside Kansas City during the playoffs, but hasn't exactly struggled on the road during his career. He's won 2 neutral site Super Bowls. He has a career 775 winning percentage away from home. Did we see a Chiefs team during the wild card round that has finally gotten closer to fixing some of its offensive issues heading into what is by far its biggest game of the year so far?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they moved the ball relatively well. They had, as someone who drafted a lot of Chiefs in best ball formats for the playoffs, it's really helpful to have a team that only kicks field goals when they get inside the 20. That was great and a fun time. But the closer you move to the end zone, the fewer chances you have, and the more random it becomes. The fact that they got into the red zone a lot tells me that they could have scored a lot more points. And I don't know if this is like a philosophical change or just there is only so much these other players can do, but Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice accounted for 62% of the team's targets. And that is probably not a winning strategy in the long term to have 2 players who account for every single useful play in your passing attack. But what other choice do they have? I mean, they trotted Mecole Hardman out there for 40% of the routes and immediately made the most Mecole Hardman play you've seen in a long time.
He did that 5 times in the game, multiple times on special teams.
Why does Mecole Hardman not run down deep balls?
That one where he didn't dive. I mean,
there were two where he just gave up.
And I was instinctively hitting, I think, box the dive button on my PS5 controller.
Right. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, but I mean, it was confounding. Dude, you still I know the guy touched you. I know the defender touched your shoulder pad, but you could still run under the ball. And
the defender was telling him, "Hey, buddy, look up, ball."
I know. He's trying to
just tapping a little gentle tap.
To dive.
Like you don't have to give up on the play because someone breathed on you hard. I don't know.
Wow,
is that too much?
Denny's gone hardo mode. He's hard, hard bad. It snowed once in Maryland, and now Denny's like a but, that was quite confusing by Mecole Hardman. Everything he does is confusing. Kyle, you were still talking about the Chiefs' offense.
I'm sorry.
Consolidated.
They're throwing to two guys. Like,
which what they need to do. You said it might not be sustainable in a 17-game season. During this 3 or 4 game playoff season, they have no other choice. Like, it's wasted touches if they don't do that.
Yeah, we'll see if Kadarius Toney comes back. He was limited in practice throughout last week, but did not play. I saw he was limited for the first practice this week. But I think that really just obscures any sort of like, oh, well, Mecole Hardman got some deep shots. Maybe he connects on them. One, he's obviously not going to connect on them. It's what he does, is not connect on the great throws from Patrick Mahomes. But even then, at this point, like, he ran 40-something% of the routes, and maybe they get Toney back. I guess technically they also get Sky Moore back as well.
Do you remember Sky Moore?
Hardly. I mean, my dynasty teams remember him painfully.
I don't want to hear anything about Sky Moore this offseason. I'm just telling both of you. I refuse to talk about him.
Look, as an ardent Sky Moore stan, I think even the strongest among us have no fight left, obviously.
Sky Moore, man, he's even older than that. He turns 24 in September, so he's not even young for like his third year in the league. It's totally over.
It's
so over. Denny, the Bills continue. The point you make every week, I feel like the Bills are playing. They play not to lose rather than trying to win. Yeah. What do they need to do to actually win and defeat their arch nemesis, the Kansas City Chiefs?
So when these teams played in Week 14 in the Kadarius Toney Bowl, the Bills were 10% above their expected dropback rate. That was the last time we saw the Bills go pass heavy. From there on out for the rest of the season and into the playoffs, the Bills are 9% below their expected dropback rate. This has fueled touches of rushing attempts for both James Cook and Josh Allen. They're letting Josh be Josh finally. 57 rushing attempts over his past 5 games. So basically, over 11 per game. That's a far cry from his 4 rushes per game in the first half of the season. So we're getting the full Josh Allen experience. Very little pass volume. So I think, like fantasy wise, I kind of like a James Cook, Josh Allen lineup with like a Rashee Rice run back or something. I like that.
You got any sick Bills plays? That's something I put on the show sheet. We wanted sick from the Bills.
Yeah,
Deontay Hardy scored a touchdown last week. For instance,
you could get sick with Dawson Knox. He's out there enough, But I mean, that's pretty sick.
You just said Deontay Hardy scored a touchdown last week. Didn't Dawson Knox scored a touchdown last week in sick Bills?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, the Bills scored a lot of sick touchdowns against the Steelers. That's kind of all they
did. It 2 weeks ago now they had the hilarious Trent Sherfield touchdown. It was like tipped somewhere. I don't know if it was a linebacker at the line. And I mean, it goes because Josh Allen's throwing 60 miles an hour. It reaches the top of the goalpost. And Sherfield, really cool, like toe tap and grab to come down with it.
All year, by the way, we've been hearing complaints like from the entire league about like the Chiefs getting like a friendly whistle, except for, of course, the Mecole Hardman whistle. I thought the Bills got an extraordinarily friendly whistle against. I don't think there's anything to it. I'm not saying that, but man, there were a lot of calls winning against the Steelers in that game. My only goal in the playoffs, I don't root for DFS. I always just root for the game to be close because I want it to be interesting until the final minute. Like every time the Steelers were getting close, I feel like there was some like catastrophically bad call that went against them. And like there's gonna be like a lot of like just agony this week over the refereeing.
There will be. There will be. I feel like, I know that the officiating has gotten bad, but like I feel like the social media has exacerbated the situation where every single, even controversial call is the end of the world for everybody, including you fans, non-fans, DFS, whatever. Like, geez, do we have to talk about every single call?
I mean, in like the early 2000s, how many like out of market West Coast games were you watching? For me, like my family is all Steelers fans. Like I wasn't seeing a single Seahawks game, just wasn't happening. And now obviously I can get the highlights of every game. I do get the highlights of every game.
I'll tell you what you did see was every single call going against the Seahawks in that Seahawks-Steelers Super Bowl. One of the most infamously refereed games in the history of the sport.
I was really young then.
That's actually that's like one of the lodestars, one of the touchstones for bad refereeing. Is not a single call went the Seahawks' way in that Super Bowl.
I just remember that one being fun. That was a good one. I only have positive memories of that one. No critiques.
We should really look into that. I think the main reason refereeing has gotten worse is that they're afraid to make a call because they just want it to go to replay, or they're afraid to get overturned replay. So I feel you get way less decisive action than you used to get from referees. It's like, well, whatever. I'm just going to wait until I know for real what's happening. And then if I'm wrong, we can go to review. I think that's what's hurt refereeing more than anything else is over-reliance on replay fixing things.
Well, it's why every single time a screen pass goes awry and the guy clearly drops it, we have to have the defense recover it.
Oh yeah.
End zone and a 12-minute replay. Yes. And I'm like, oh god, we have to do this again. Can we just call one pass incomplete?
No, we cannot. I will never call this one pass incomplete. Denny, he tried to get a little sick with the DFS plays. It's a little easier with the Chiefs, Kyle. Any sicko. And those 38% of the targets that aren't Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, who are you jamming into your DFS lineups?
Yeah, we saw MVS's role scaled back last week.
Right. That's too sick.
No. Well, I was going to say, no. We saw it scaled back, which created room for like Justin Watson to run 60% of the routes, as if that's some like insane development that like, I thought you were going to say something sick like MVS. Thank God you said Justin Watson.
That was like too far.
Who cares? I think the better sick plays in this game are on the other side of the ball. Khalil Shakir, like, he just might straight up be better than Gabe Davis. Like, Gabe Davis does one thing somewhat well, but Khalil Shakir, I think, just offers more to this team. Gabe Davis doesn't look like he's going to play this week with back-to-back DNPs. Shakir, 85% of the routes last week, 84% the week before that. He is a full-time receiver in a high-scoring environment, and he's Josh Allen's number 2 receiver, probably number 3 pass catcher. Even Trent Sherfield, 56% of the routes. That's typically not really relevant for your, 10, 11, whatever game slate. On a 4-game slate, or if you're playing the smaller slate / showdown, that is 100% relevant, especially like I said, there's a lot of volatility, which means upside if you're a number 3, 60% of the routes guy for Josh Allen against the Chiefs, no less.
Really, really good verbal stuff from Kyle and Denny. A lot of good written stuff on the site. Denny has the funnel report. What's the other article? Or it is all the funnel report this week. Right?
The Ravens. I also wrote about the Ravens, yeah.
Really, really good. Kyle, I don't know if either of you have an article up right now, do we?
No, I'll have some stuff coming out next week, but right now I am fostering dogs, so check out my Twitter for that. That's the big thing I got going on.
I'm also working on an off-season piece that'll hopefully be up in a few weeks' time. Keep it locked to Rotoworld.com. A lot of injury news, a lot of coaching news. Bill Belichick may be official by the time you hear this. We'll argue about it more soon. We'll do a recap show, by the way, Sunday. And Denny, by the way, you're going to be on the recap show this week.
I'm definitely going to be. I'm going to be drinking that coffee, folks.
We iced you out, Kyle and I, last week. Just didn't even ask.
Typical.
And Denny and Kyle, as soon as the divisional round ends, we're going to get to breaking it down. So for Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back soon.